there's a lot of content, there's a lot of things that entrepreneurs need to be like working 24/7 and all of that. It's not true. Like you don't
I
need to
agree.
work hard all the time, you need to work smart. So it doesn't mean that you are like working day and night about it. So I was speaking to your brother only about this. So the thing is that there's no point of working like a donkey and working 24/7, like you get to a point as an entrepreneur where you need to learn those things. It's not something that will come naturally to you, because everything has an opportunity cost, right? When you're chilling with your friends, you have this thing in your head that, okay, I'm not giving time to my work. And when you're working, you have this thing in your head that, oh, my friends are doing something like this, family's doing something like this. So it's like you should give the amount of time that your company, like, at least when you're starting off, your company should be priority number one. But the amount of time that you dedicate to your company, your startup, needs to be efficient, right?
Shouldn't
Like,
get tired of it.
yeah, you shouldn't get tired of it, and it should be efficient. There's no point of working on a startup for 24 hours wherein you're just working 4 hours. Rather, you give those 4 hours, just straight 4 hours, and then the rest you can like unwind. Because as a founder, there's a lot of things you need to do, a lot of new
So
things you need
many.
to keep doing. So that's another thing.
I think that valid point that somebody also, another one of my friends told me, like, don't focus on quantity, focus on quality. If at that time in those 2 hours you figured out how to clear out 17 fires and you put out those fires, and you felt like you had that 1% progress for the next day, you're sold on it. Like, you're there.
Right, yeah.
And that'll push you more than rather, because a lot of people now with the whole hustle culture ends up being like, you know what, this problem is not being solved, it's not being solved, and then it becomes a pattern in the head where it starts seeping into your personal life.
Yeah, get up at 5
Yeah.
a.m. and then start doing this. Yes.
And there is no healthy balance, because a lot of everything is different for different people. Some people still wake up at 11 and still have their unicorn businesses and still run that thing, and that is testament to the fact that it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one thing, and especially because India and especially some parts of India are very startup driven companies, they are the ones who are like, we're going to tackle this where we're going to put, because they are just young and they just gotten out of college, we're going to put in 25 hours. Like, we'll make we won't even sleep. And that does make sense, as you mentioned in the start, but a lot of people don't realize that it then makes them complacent down the line.
Correct. Yeah.
You've used up your particular energy, you've had that high, but then over a point you've reached saturation. When certain, because no car can run at 120 kilometers per hour indefinitely.
Right.
There has to be a pickup, there has to be a drop. And I think that is one thing that I really love from Another Foods, because I think you were one of the first people that we approached when ROHFIT was something completely different.
Now. Yes, I remember now.
Yeah, the iterations and the amount of modifications that have been made, and very progressively. I think it's been a year and a half almost since we last had that meeting. And that is just understanding about the fact that go with the flow, but go with the flow where you have the paddles of the boat in your hand. You know where you're steering it. You know which goal and which destination you want to lead.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because like one of the major drawbacks, or one of the main things I always felt bad about, is like the amount of time it's taking. Right? It's like time just goes like that, and the amount of time it's taking just to do a small thing. And I think that's one thing that somebody in this space, or somebody who's willing to explore this space, need to focus on, like, is patience. Nothing's gonna happen, literally nothing happens immediately. Everything just takes time, and you need to go through that process. Even though it feels like nothing's happening, there are things happening. You just need to be patient about it, but it is a long journey. Because I always, like, I'll tell you what. So basically, the company Another Foods was registered in end of 2021. Okay, but we made our first sale in November of 2022. So almost a year after it was registered is when we made our first sale. But in that 1 year, so much foundation, so much building was happening. But I was just so like fed up, because it was taking so long. Because I thought, basically, by Jan of 2022 or Feb, I think my product was ready, at least the first version of it. But still, it took so much time because you need to set up things, you know, you need to do all of these things before you start going to the market. And I'm actually grateful I did those things. Like at that point of time, I thought it was useless because I was just wasting time. I had made no sales, I had made no connections, but I was still building something. And that's the thing I think every founder should really think about, and not beat themselves about, you know. Things take time. There are people around you who might be progressing at different like state, different speed, but you should focus on yourself and how you're building the company. Obviously look at your competitors, that's a very important thing. I'm not saying completely go blind about it. Keep that in mind, but don't keep that as the main thing, because all products don't have a first mover advantage. Right now, for example, even for me, there were plant-based companies who are dealing with who are, there are competitors of mine who have reached out to hotels and restaurants that we are serving at. But even after being 1 year, 1.5 years late to the party, we were still able to replace my competitor with my product, purely because we have understood what chefs want, we've understood what hotels want. So it's essentially like first move advantage is not always the case. Being the second move is also better because you see what your competitor is doing
You
wrong in the
learn from their
market and you learn from them
mistakes.
and you do it. So speed is not the only thing. Quality should be accompanied with speed. So be patient, and then things will just happen and fall into place.